Former Governor General David Johnston's move to call for public hearings into foreign interference in Canada instead of a public inquiry is being met with some mixed reactions. Mr. Johnston says he has identified significant shortcomings in the way intelligence from security agencies was communicated to the government. But Mr. Johnston did not identify any instances where the Prime Minister negligently failed to act on intelligence, advice, or recommendations. The conclusions in Mr. Johnston's first report come after all opposition parties called for a public inquiry into foreign interference in Canadian politics. Mr. Johnston's work is expected to continue through the end of October. This is when he is due to present a final report to the government. Well, joining us now to unpack the first report on foreign interference in Canadian politics and what it all means is Dr. Charles Burton, former diplomat to China and senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Dr. Burton, welcome back to Forum Daily.
It's good to speak with you, Nima.
So can you give our viewers just a quick, brief outline of the main points of this first report and any evidence that was found regarding foreign election interference in Canada and how it was handled?
Well, I mean, Mr. Johnston says that there's no need for a public inquiry because he has reviewed all the relevant data, spoken to all of the relevant people, and therefore a public inquiry would be redundant. We should just count on him to tell us what's going on. He says that the reports in the Globe and Mail and Global News have been misconstrued, that in fact there is no basis for saying that the Prime Minister or any of the other ministers of the Crown were in any way negligent or engaged in any malfeasance in not responding to the very serious allegations that have been made in Global News by Sam Cooper and in the Globe and Mail by Bob Fife and Steve Chase. And he will hold these public hearings, but they won't be subpoenaing anybody to appear. It seems that these are opportunities for affected groups to express their concerns to Mr. Johnston, who will take them in and take them into his next report. So essentially, it's sort of nothing to see here. Everyone can move along, trust me. And that's pretty much the end of the matter. As you say, he does feel that there is, as the Prime Minister has said himself, some issues in the the communication of secure classified data that calls some foreign actors into question, and that these are essentially to be resolved through improvements of the bureaucratic process that deals with this kind of thing. So all in all, I think Canadians still don't feel that we have got satisfaction as to the very serious matter of foreign interference in our democratic process, and it appears that we won't be getting that from Mr. Johnston going forward.
And now I want to definitely touch on that issue in terms of the flow of information to Canadians and politicians, which was clearly highlighted. There is an issue when it comes to this. So did Mr. Johnston give us any details on how officials are trying to address the issue of the flow of information?
Well, I mean, he is suggesting that the classified reports are not traceable. You don't know who has read them. They simply give the name of the 17 different security elements in the government, global affairs, PCO, and so on. Based on my experience of dealing with classified information, classified reports are all numbered, and one knows exactly who's read them. So I'm puzzled by this assertion in his report that there's confusion about the flow. And certainly we don't seem to have satisfactory answers with regard to these reports in Global News and the Globe and Mail as to who read them and where they went. The National Security Advisor, Jody Thomas, did directly contradict the Prime Minister and Marco Mendicino, the Minister of Public Safety, who had claimed that CSIS had not moved these documents up because CSIS had felt that there was no need for the political element to read them, and this apparently was not the case, and so she has directly contradicted her boss. I think there's still a lot of questions to be resolved, and I don't think that the opposition parties and I think significant elements within the Liberal Party are going to be satisfied with how this is playing out.
And on the note of opposition parties, we know the Conservatives are renewing their call for a public inquiry, and they're calling for a foreign influence registry. How likely are we to see a public inquiry going on ahead, regardless of Mr. Johnston's recommendations here?
Well, I mean, it is possible that the Prime Minister would eventually give in to pressure and appoint someone, a distinguished, neutral person who could subpoena anybody and look at all the documents and, make statements to the public such as they would not reveal the methods of CSIS's intelligence gathering or reveal sensitive sources. I think that's quite possible. It doesn't look as if the government wants to do that because, the people who are deciding about whether or not we have a public inquiry are, in fact, the same people that would be subject to investigation. In other words, the Prime Minister and Minister of Public Security and various other people in the government that have been cited in these documents in the newspaper. So it's hard to see that happening. And I think with regard to the foreign influence registry, there again, it does touch on the possibility that a number of people in government, past and present, have been receiving benefits from a foreign state and would be required to disclose this. And so I think there's a lot of resistance at the senior levels of the civil service and government to prevent that from happening.
All right, lots to keep our eyes on. Dr. Burton, thank you again for your time today.
It's good to speak with you.
We'll be right back.